I know you've seen the videos. I know you've seen the videos. It's some random preacher addressing a congregation with his whole chest about how doggone, you mean Lucifer in water? I remember vividly being told by my mom when I was younger, barely getting into Pokemon, that I should stop immediately. Because the news was talking about how Pokemon was associated with the devil. This was real, and I know that because when she told me, I went to go look at the TV. It was an old TV, it was one of the console sets on the floor. And I don't know how far this branched out, but I know for sure that the news channel that my lovely Mexican mother was watching was probably Univision, which if you're not familiar, they are Fearmonger Central. They suck. But I looked, and there it was. Indigo League's opening theme being used as B-roll in this news segment trying to connect Bellsprout to Satan. Now, I'm not that good a sleuth to dig up this broadcast from had to be late 90s, but I do think we can take from the media that is readily available to try and make some educated guesses as to what the media was saying back then. And there's a lot out there. So please join me in taking a closer look at the, mind you, ongoing discussion of Pokemon's relationship to the devil. A little video I like to call In the Beginning, Colorado Springs, August 1999. A children's pastor named Mark caught wind of the ongoing Pokemon craze, and he wasn't too fond of it. So he wanted to make an example in church. And before I go on, a lot of the pushback that I'm going to discuss is shrouded in religion, if not all of it. Your takeaway from this video should not be that religion sucks. It's just kind of funny. So, the pastor pulls out a sword. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, something you'll hear a lot in this discourse is that Pokemon is short for pocket monsters. Contain yourselves. And I hate everybody's smug smirk after they say that. That sentence is always followed by a pause. People treat it like the smoking gun of this whole operation. And I don't know why. Guys, nobody was stowing away this information for the elites. The franchise began as Pocket Monsters in Japan. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's still called that in Japan. I looked up some of the recent shows and they all open up with what I'm recognizing to be Pocket Monsters. Also, some of the older shows just throw you the oop and open up with Pocket Monsters. Pokemon for short. So those people are dumb. Pastor with sword. Okay, so the pastor read an essay claiming that Pokemon encourage role-playing that elevates children over God to the position of master, and that the games and toys are laced with dark references. What a pairing of arguments. This game makes children believe they have surpassed God Almighty himself. And that Haunter guy's kind of spooky. So the senior pastor at that church, also named Mark, first became suspicious when he saw a Pokemon card that said Abracadabra. And I'm going to assume that Dingus was looking at two separate cards, because there is an Abra and there is a Kadabra. But there is no Abracadabra. Now that would be satanic. We agree there. This is actually where I paused while reading this random online article, because I started to think, some of this doesn't make sense. Keep in mind, a pastor allegedly stabs a Pikachu in front of dozens of children later in the story. It sounded a little fake. Plus, I was on rando websites reading about this. So, I looked up the church, and I found out that they most likely changed their name. They're now across the street from a Chick-fil-A, hee hee ha. I looked through reviews of the church and saw that there is indeed a Pastor Mark that still works there. Even better, I found out this story was apparently written for the Denver Post in 1999. So I went to their archives, paid a bit of money, and boom, there it was. This shit happened. And a few of the wonky details that were on the other websites are clarified a bit here. And I can keep routing around this, but let me just get to the highlight. To send a very powerful message to the kids in attendance, age 6 through 12, mind you. Pastor Mark took a blowtorch and started lighting Pokemon cards on fire. And presumably at this point, he already had the kids on his side because they were right there with him, chanting, "Burn it, burn it, burn it." Like imagine he just pulled a first edition Shadowless Charizard. A young Logan Paul would have shed a tear and not known why. He then struck a plastic Pokemon action figure with a 30-inch sword, which, Few questions. Plastic action figure? That's a bit awkward to do no matter how you slice it. This is a little pastor humor for you. I mean, unless it's like a really sharp sword and he just went Bible bonds on him. Anyway, Mark's 9-year-old son then proceeded to tear the limbs and head off the Pokemon doll as the children chanted, "Chop it up, chop it up." Then they threw it away and boom, Satan was defeated that very day. Have you seen him recently? I didn't think so. You want to know what's annoying looking into this specific story so much? I don't know who's telling the truth anymore. Because the Denver Post write-up should be solid. I mean, it's the news. The news has never lied to us. But I kept seeing this other snippet where Mark essentially said, yeah, it's mostly true, but the reporters are blowing it a bit out of proportion. Okay. Apparently that information was from an article that ran in Electronic Gaming Monthly, and there was no other information on that. It didn't tell me what issue to look through, so I ran through multiple Gaming Electronic Monthly archives, which were hundreds of pages each, flipping the pages of game ads, cheat codes, rumors, reviews, until I got to the November 1999 issue of EGM, where if you happen to flip to page 220, you will find Pokeband, The Dark Side of Pikachu, where Pastor Mark clarifies a few things. One, he didn't use a blowtorch. He just singed some cards with a soldering iron, which, okay, this is better, I guess. And two, that he actually struck a stuffed animal, that Pikachu guy, with the sword, which honestly checks out. The action figure made no sense. So according to him, he stabbed Pikachu with a sword that is not sharp. And by the way, this is the same sword that the Denver Post is calling a 30-inch sword. Do you guys know how big a 30-inch sword is? This is 25. Maybe the writer butchered this detail as well. But if she didn't, and the 30-inch measurement is correct, I'd like to take a moment to reference a quote from one of the pastors there. One of the marks. The sword was used in demonstration because the Bible says that the way you come down against the powers of darkness is with the sword of the Spirit. We don't do things just for the sake of being sensational like the World Federation of Wrestling. You tell me you didn't have anything smaller? A little more compact? It's a little showy. I'm just saying. It's also WWF, not WFW. You dweeb. And that concludes today's sermon. Also, remember earlier how I told you that the pastor was reading an essay written by somebody talking about Pokemon, and that's what drove him to do what he did? I found that essay. Where do I start with this one? So I guess I can start here. This lady has zero clue what she's talking about. Zero. 0 calories, 0 sugar. Yo, shout out to Gamersupps for sponsoring this banger. Play it, baby!
You ever found a baddie, wonder if she like you? Yeah. Hope she feel the spark too, like a riot shoe. But soon those neck kisses start to bite you. Yeah. Funny how you worn out when all she does is fight you. You can't be the right boo, tell you what I might do. Gamersupps.gg so I can cut myself a waifu. I just need my waifu. I just need my waifu. I just need my waifu on a shaker cup. I'm poly with these polygons, will make me choose my favorite. Need some energy so I can slap till I get cold ones. Start to shake it up and I think damn I need to throw ones. Bring my lips up on it but I gotta keep it wholesome. Channel Danny Tanner but those foods are far from most son. Composition's vile while I'm sipping on a potion. I don't put my dick in these, it's just called good promotion. Found a baddie, wonder if she like you. Oh, she feel the spark too, like a right shoe. But soon those neck cases start to bite you. Funny how you worn out when all she does is fight you. You can't be the right boo, tell you what I might do. Gamersupps.gg so I can cut myself a waifu.
Yes, sir.
I just need my waifu. I just need my waifu. 10% off when you use my code. Mr. GG, you can use my code. 10% off when you use my code. Mr. GG, you can use my code.
So she thankfully split this up into sections for us. And the first section is our introduction to what is Pokemon. And she immediately makes 2 points of criticism. First point, a second grade teacher discusses no longer allowing Pokemon cards in their school because when coming in from recess, kids are busy making trades, or even worse, older kids are getting the little kids to trade away their valuable cards because they're stupid little kids. Which just kind of reads like a situation where, I don't know, a second grade teacher could intervene. And overall, this delays the process of the kids returning back inside the school. That's the main issue. This is the same essay that talks about kids elevating above God to become a master, by the way. And this is the first point she makes. Tardiness. So I remember in 4th grade, we used to collect Mighty Beans, which they apparently still sell. I bought some Fortnite ones for reference. And I remember this same exact scenario happening. They were threatening to ban Mighty Beans in my school because we would have them out a little past lunch after the bell rang, which would then lead to us getting back to class. So this tardy pandemic that they describe is not Pokemon exclusive. It's just kids being distracted by shit they like. Her second point. Now she says, bar for bar, any child exploring the most popular Pokemon websites will be linked to a selection of occult games. Now, no, she doesn't mean that when you're browsing a Pokemon site, it's gonna be like, oh, if you like this, you might also like 6 Ouija boards. What she is referring to is Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, which those games are their own conversation entirely. But man, are they brought up often when people are coming at Pokemon. And believe it or not, there is a link there. That link being that the company Wizards of the Coast was the publisher for the Pokemon trading card game for about 5 years when it first started selling in the US. And Wizards of the Coast also published D&D and Magic. So how this usually goes is the people taking aim at Pokemon will always take the time to also attack Magic and D&D. And this tactic always makes their Pokemon debate look so much weaker because it comes off like, okay, these two are like for sure demon stuff. We can see that. These are a little cuter, we're trying. But get this publisher works with all of them, all demons. Which, okay, you might be onto something, but I wonder how the parents who think like that feel now. Because here's a fun fact, guys. Wizards of the Coast was acquired by Hasbro. So, Dungeons and Dragons, Hasbro. Magic the Gathering, Hasbro. And we wouldn't want to delve into anything associated with deviltry, right, guys? So, Bobby's Nerf gun, sacrilege. Lil Jimmy's Transformer, burn it. Jessica's Pinkie Pie, jar. If you let your kids even smell Play-Doh, they'll levitate. Yeah, that was only my response to the first section. So let's get a little stretching real quick. Reach out those arms. Because she's about to do some reaching as well. Second section. She continues to describe Pokemon a bit and then tries to pull off the craziest analogy segue of 1999. She starts by describing a recent episode of Pokemon that she saw. And I just have to read it to you because everything's wrong. So she's talking about Ash here, right? His first step is to find the psychic Pokemon called Kadabra and snatch it from its telepathic pink-eyed trainer, Sabrina. No, Ash does not need to snatch Sabrina's Pokemon. He doesn't do that. And her eyes are purple. With the Ghost Haunter on his side, it should be a cinch. But Ash had underestimated the power of his opponent. When he and Sabrina meet for the battle, both hurl their chosen Pokemon into the air, but only Kadabra evolves into a super monster with a magic flash. Did you watch this with sunglasses from 30 yards away? So I had figured that she was talking about episode 22 from Indigo League, Abra and the Psychic Showdown, but the details didn't match up. So I thought, oh, she's probably talking about episode 23, the Tower of Terror, because that's where we first meet Haunter. Nope, well the only other episode in this storyline is episode 24, Haunter versus Kadabra, which the title should give it away. I mean, that's what she's referencing. Why is everything still wrong? Kadabra doesn't evolve into a super monster in any of the episodes. Abra evolves into Kadabra, but that's also not in the battle against Haunter like you said. It's against Pikachu in episode 22. They don't both hurl their chosen Pokemon in the air because Ash never captures Haunter. Haunter just agrees to help him, but he never engages in battle. Hence the next line. Haunter hides. Looks like your ghost Pokemon got spooked, taunts Sabrina. You know what's crazy? If I wanted to take things from these 3 episodes and try to manipulate you guys that something bad is a brewing here, I could do that and have a few people hear me out. So that's why I get so confused reading this. This lady either just lied or watched the episodes through a kaleidoscope. Haunter technically hides. But not because he's scared. It's because he, along with the other ghost Pokemon, are like the Three Stooges and like fucking around. That's why he's hiding. Also, Sabrina doesn't say this. Brock does. Looks like the ghost Pokemon got spooked. You can say I'm arguing trivial details, but this should reflect what she's putting into the rest of the essay. And sure, I can acknowledge that back then she couldn't just run back the episode on demand, but that also shouldn't forego accuracy. Anyway, here's the segue I was talking about. Obviously, Ash didn't understand the supernatural powers he had confronted. Neither do most young Pokemon fans today. Unless they know God and his warnings, they cannot understand the forces that have captivated children around the world. I don't even think this analogy segue would be that bad. If you just said Ash was gonna fight Sabrina, he got his ass whooped because he did. He was caught off guard and he lost. And you could have made that point without all of the things that were incorrect. Third section. She talks about how Pokemania is a frenzy. Talks about the seductive vision to become Pokemon masters. Talks about the urgent command. Gotta catch 'em all. These enticements are drilled into young minds through clever ads, snappy slogans, and the Pokemon rap. That's how she's randomly been spelling it, by the way. The Pokemon rap at the end of each TV episode. Yeah, this section is basically marketing. She goes on to reiterate what this fantasy world can do to kids and ends with this. The Pokemon website is full of tips, explanations, and ads that can encourage the urge to splurge and to express the darker side of human nature. She's about to hit us with something. She quotes one of the sites. You can catch a Mew by cheating with a Game Shark. Ah, the Game Shark. Cheating is not honorable. Those Go posts are getting fatter and fatter. Are they demonic or not, lady? I mean, what game can you not cheat in? She follows that up with, but many of you have requested and sent me this information, so I have put it up for all you cheaters. Why are we catching strays? I've never cheated in Pokemon. How do you even do that? The Moonstone evolves certain Pokemon, such as Clefairy. Yeah, that's some game-breaking information. Also not cheating? No one's ever gotten out of a jam because of their Clefable. Select your desired attack. Hold down the button until your opponent's life stops draining. That one just sounds super spooky to you. Hey, why did you include it? Once you have captured Zapdos, you can use it to quickly lower the health level of Articuno. These are just tips. Shit ones at that. You just called us all cheaters. Back it up. Fourth section. It's more anecdotes, but I'll read you one because I think it sums it up well. During a recent party for Matthew, Barbara heard two of the boys discussing their little pocket monsters. One said, "I'll just use my psychic powers." Already, the world of fantasy had colored his real world. Fifth section. I should actually mention that in the previous section, she starts talking about Magic the Gathering, with their spirits, possessions, summons, and that's her lead up to just lump all the games together in this section. And this is where she just blows her load, going full occult psychological takeover. It's such a steep ramp up, and it's so bold that there's not even any point in me starting to refute this. It's on screen if you want to pause and read how hard she's coming here. There's irony in there somewhere, but we'll walk past it. Final section. She ends with tips on how to stop and or prevent Pokemon from being present in the home. Gold mines such as to teach young children a biblical attitude toward evil before they learn to delight in gross, ugly characters. Make comments such as, who would want to play with that evil monster? I don't even like to look at him. Let's find something that makes us feel happy inside. No Hasbro! She ends it with some more hearsay. I guess there's a story of some kid somewhere that stole $7 from his mom's purse to buy Pokemon cards. And when he was questioned, he said the devil was urging him to do it. So they then prayed and burnt the cards. Which, I don't know. It just sounds like a 9-year-old not trying to get his ass beat. I feel like he was just ready to pull that card for the right ass whooping. He just had it holstered right there. The devil talked to me. Boom! Quick note, while looking up this topic, I found this BuzzFeed-esque article talking about things that your parents thought were demonic when you were a kid. And Pokemon was on that list. That article was written in 2017. And there was actually another article written just like it. That one was written in 2021. Pokemon was also on that list. And both of those articles were written in Spanish, posted on the Univision website. Written for Univision. You got some balls, kid. Imagine actively pushing propaganda and then 20 years later being like, yo, remember when people thought this? Because of us? Yo, who did this? Anyway, because of my excessive push into this topic, I came across the most random content criticizing Pokemon. For example, a TikTok made by a random lady in 2022. It wasn't viral or anything, but it proved to me that people, maybe not many, but some, still buy into this type of stuff even today. And now I normally wouldn't pull over to just fucking yam on a hitchhiker like this, but I think it's a good example, a good modern example of fear-mongering by misinformation. So let's see what she's got to say.
If you don't know, Pokemon is short for pocket monsters. Bet you didn't know that.
She's on to us.
One of the main characters is Pikachu, but if you say the name really slow, it sounds like peek at you. Think that's weird?
No. One of the bug Pokemon is Weedle, but if you say his name really slow, it sounds like weed. Oh. Just in case you were curious, Pika is a Japanese onomatopoeia for like a spark. And Chew is a Japanese onomatopoeia for the noise that a mouse makes. Because Pikachu is basically a high voltage rat.
Then you have this character of Minnie, Vulpix. Let me tell you what it means. So here's the meaning of Vulpix. And it's actually an element and it's derived from Vulcan, who is or was the god of fire, volcanoes, and blacksmiths. It's of Roman mythology. It's a demon.
Oh, okay. Okay, that one's pretty foolproof. Because the way she was describing it, she was... Oh, wait, what does that first sentence say? The name Vulpix is a blend of the words Vulpes, or Vulpine, and six. Hey, would you look at that? This is the end of the discussion. That was the first sentence. Because the part she emphasized says that Vulpix's element, fire, most likely... there's a lot of important words here that you just kind of took in, have been derived from Vulcan. I think you get the point with this one, right? Like later in the video, she shows us Infernusarius. Exactly. It's a fake Pokemon. It's fucking deviant art. These people do no research on what they're talking about. And listen, I know what you're thinking. Gigi, this is low-hanging fruit. And my response to that is, guys, this is all low-hanging fruit. Now, before I get to some of the more popular preacher clips out there, I actually want to talk about Pokemon Go. Now, I would be shocked if you don't know what that is, but it was a mobile app released in the summer of 2016, and it was one of the craziest fads I've ever seen blown up in real time. And because of that, it gave people the primo opportunity to take aim at Pokemon again, because Pokemon was as hot as ever. I'm talking Infernusarius levels of hot. Now, if you weren't there for it, it was as simple as walk around your local area, anywhere really, and find Pokemon IRL to catch on the app. If you went somewhere with multiple Pokestops, you could collect eggs and Pokeballs, you would see a crowd of people any given day, and it also helped that more Pokemon spawn by Pokestops. And the Pokestops, per the Pokemon Go website, are real-world landmarks in places such as historical markers, monuments, art installations, churches, etc. And it is because of this that we were gifted a nice little rant from Pastor Rick Wiles on his radio show. I will hold off on describing that man in detail, just kind of take my word on this one. He sucks. So on the radio show, he talks about how these Pokemon creatures are virtual cyber demons. And this just goes on with our reoccurring theme of the people who are labeling Pokemon as demonic, not knowing dick about Pokemon.
Pokemon Go is primarily, the demons are primarily being located inside churches.
Nope. Not primarily. You are just one location out of the bunch. Starting off with a lie. Where's that guy that Scott covered in a video? Give me a thumbs down.
It's a lie. In our office, we stood here and I watched them do it. They downloaded the Pokemon Go app, and inside the True News building was a virtual cyber demon.
Listen, I know you probably saw a little shelter in your building, because I remember when engaging a Pokemon, you could set up a real-world view to turn your camera on and show the Pokemon, quote, in front of you. But I never used that because it always made me lag, kill my battery, and I missed out on a Magmar one time because of it. But that's just an adorable little gimmick. I mean, you don't need to walk into any building to capture a Pokemon. It's set up that way. As long as you're in a moderate range, you can engage with a Pokemon, Pokestop, etc. Like I remember when I used to go for walks, I could be damn near a quarter mile away from a Pokestop and still hit it. And so far, this is all tame from Rick, by the way. This is where he empties the clip.
This technology will be used by the enemies of the cross to target, locate, and execute Christians.
You mean maps?
This technology
You mean maps, right? I think he doesn't know that I can find a church without drowsies being involved. Also, who's the B. Mike Schmiedwriter 3000 over here?
by the enemies of the cross.
He didn't even make a point yet. We started at the presence of virtual cyber demons and somehow went higher. How did we reach this conclusion, by the way? All because the game spawned in a Pokemon? Wait. Oh my god. He said they just downloaded the game, right? They were probably just playing the tutorial because the tutorial automatically spawns in starter Pokemon no matter where you are. And if you click one of them, it automatically defaults to the back camera view. Oh my god. It's just the most Baba Booey shit ever. Such an outlandish statement because of a tutorial. Anyway, remember my introduction to all of this? It was through Spanish language news. So I feel like I gotta find something in Spanish to talk about. Were there any preachers saying anything absolutely batshit in Spanish? Yes. Yeah, we're gonna need to make some room for this guy. Everybody welcome in Preacher Josue. Now this one is interesting because the preacher that I'm sure most people have seen is Pastor Phil Arms. He's the guy who says, Why? But if you look him up, his only presence online is pretty much just that Pokemon Power Rant. And on the other hand, Josue not only still has a presence online to this day, he also has a whole nonprofit, has apparently preached to millions in 72 countries for decades, and he says some of the wildest shit I will say in this entire video. This is only a 9-minute clip of one of his preachings, and I sat there the entire time, mouth agape. He's here to fully demonize Pokemon. There are adults and children present, and this segment starts with him running through some of the cards and explaining why they're terrible one by one, which expected. But there is one little problem, and that is that they're not Pokemon cards, which is a pretty big problem. This man spends 4 minutes running through Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and he ends that segment by saying, "Eso es Pokemon." That is Pokemon. And it could have been French, he's still fucking wrong. Now, normally I would chalk something up like this to, he's just a boomer. But I have a few questions regarding this segment, because there is just no way in hell that he confused the two. And I am in fact so confident in that because just 3 minutes later, he brings out actual Pokemon cards. And when he does that, he starts by flipping the card saying, look, it says Pocket Monsters, which just kind of reiterates to me that you know you are lying to these people. You know that your case for Pokemon is weak as hell. So you opened up with an entirely different game that you know is much easier to pass off as witchcraft to manipulate with ease. Another thing, and I am not exaggerating, he goes through about 30 Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and he says something evil about each one. And I just can't help but ask, did you even look through any of these before doing this segment? Because it doesn't sound like it. Listen to the first couple.
Mi pueblo se pierde por falta de conocimiento. Mira, hermanos, el cabro, ¿cómo se dice? Cabrito, los dos cuernos.
The goat. The 2 horns. I mean, come on. They're not even hiding it anymore. It's kind of impressive how dedicated he was to bullshitting this entire segment. And aside from my shock and awe, when he would get to certain cards, I would kick back and think, nah, go ahead. Tell him how that one's demonic.
Un robot en forma de un demonio. Aquí están.
He has to be improving. That is his first time seeing that card. A robot in the shape of a devil? It's a swordsman in armor. You should be able to see that. Because you know who can't? Everybody in the audience. They're all just kind of squinting, taking your word for it. Like, yeah, that sounds about right. He gets the ancient telescope, and this just kind of solidifies that he has never seen these cards in his entire life.
Aquí es un palo como un bat de béisbol que enseña para destrozar los otros demonios. Por eso hay niños matando a otros niños con bat de béisbol.
What? This guy's off his rocker. Yeah, it's a stick, like a bat, that kills other demons. I think that's a telescope. There's kids dying, Carlos. It's like I'm watching a punishment on Impractical Jokers. Like his punishment was being forced to sensationalize 30 Yu-Gi-Oh cards in a row in church without fail. Looks like Jose's today's loser. Here's a few more of my favorites.
Eso es como una cosa del tiempo que se mide el tiempo.
He said that's an hourglass. Yeah, I'm just looking for a baddie with that hourglass figure. You know what I'm talking about. You know the one. Which honestly...
Completamente lo que enseñan las tarjetas de Pokémon destruye a tus enemigos.
Do it. Go ahead. Good. Do it, pussy. Make that one demonic.
Eso es como la orilla del infierno.
He can't keep getting away with it. It's grass. It's grass with mountains in the back. I know some of you might still think this is rehearsed, but I honestly feel like I'm missing a clip where some kid just gave him Yu-Gi-Oh cards he had, or I don't know, maybe the workers he was with was just like, hey, yeah, I got some Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Andy. Because like he has duplicates in the deck, he couldn't even get fucked to turn them all right side up. So I just keep landing on the fact that it's all improv. And I was so blown away by this performance that I had to see if I could do it too. I got an unopened legendary duelist deck here. Unopened, I'm gonna try and do it. It's open, I don't see it. I'll even give it a good shuffle, just to make sure there's no tomfoolery going on here. Listen to me here. This is what the devil sent to your children. Take a look. You've got, look at these puppets here. Gathering, possession, the Ouija board. You know who controls them, your children now. Look at this. This hippo. The hippo represents monsters, unbeaten monsters in the ocean, the most dangerous, the most feared, in your child's hands. Next card, this monster clearly being possessed, summoned from the underground. Now you've got next, this battle going on. It's hard to observe because there's a lot of lights, a lot of neon lights made to blind your children to see what's really happening in front of them. Now you've got this, more neon lights at play. We've been here before. Take a look at this, a tarantula with wings, flying, not to heaven, not where you would want them to go. Now we've got this, some sort of battle warrior, battle-ridden. He's been through a lot. Grass growing on his back. Sojin. I was gonna say mold. That's not what I meant. I'm still going, fuck you. And look at this town lighting up as if it is heavenly, as if it is angelic. It is not. We've come to know that. We've come to learn that. It is a false prophet. The Bible warns us of this. This magician type girl, magic, a dark art. Need I say more? The little R stands for rhinos. Damn, this is hard, bro. This is difficult. That guy's good. This middle part confuses me. I think this is how you know he's just a professional manipulator. Because he goes behind the podium and he just starts speed running Pokemon names, naming off their moves. And if the move doesn't sound evil enough, he just sauces it up a bit. But he's not saying anything. He's just aimlessly yelling with a lot of conviction, not giving anybody listening a chance to take anything in, especially when the adults in the room almost definitely have no idea what the hell he's saying. They don't know the names. They're just sitting there and he's playing this word association game with them. Gengar, Dream Eater. Dream Eater? That's enough of these, Billy.
Geodude, te investe, te quita tu sangre.
See what I mean? What is he looking at right now? I think it's more cards, but he's not like moving anything. I'm almost positive whoever wrote this list he's reading off, or maybe he's looking at cards, just saw this card of Geodude and just wrote down his move. So he's reading everything and then he realized, well, Tackle sounds kind of cute. So he just sauced it up. Blood is included. And you know what's insane about this clip? We're not even at the craziest part yet.
Tus hijos no son solamente están bajo influencia de demonio, ellos están endemoniados. Un día de eso ellos van a tomar un cuchillo y te van a matar dormido y dormida y no vas a amanecer nunca.
Millions. He has preached to millions of people. Still not the craziest part. You can tell he really starts to get in his bag right about here because he starts using his theater voice. And he starts to really get that street salesman energy of just not allowing you to interject.
Si no sacas esas tarjetas de tu casa, mire para acá, hermanos.
It's just a quick fire. Pa, 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 pa. Mire para acá, hermanos. A jigglypuff. Muerte. So we have now arrived at the part where he starts to look through actual Pokemon cards. And I think he rehearsed these only because what he says about the second card, Jinx.
Relación sexual, si usted la pone de cabeza para abajo, con todo el respeto a usted y a su familia, está el pene del hombre injertado adentro de del, 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 del miembro íntimo de la mujer. El pene injertado en la vagina de la mujer. Ese es Pokémon. Juego de niño, sí, cómo no.
So I had to stare at this card for a while to try and see what his horny ass was seeing. And I guess the chest area is the balls, and the centerpiece of fabric is shaft. But he says it's actively inside the coochie. So I guess he's looking at the shape of the hair, and he's just being literal as to the placement of said penis. That's my only guess. I have no clue where he even got this from. I quickly looked online to see if there was any discussion about this conspiracy theory on some lowly forum, and all I found was Rule 34 Jinx and the fact that the original design was kinda blackface. But, and without skipping a beat, he turns to Lickitung and he says this.
Sexo oral. El pene adentro de la cabeza de un pez.
Listen, at some point, you have to decide, is that actually weird, or is a fucking weirdo describing it to me? I'm a degenerate as much as the next guy, but I have never looked at Lickitung and thought, that's a salamander with a cock in its mouth. Clear as day. Oh, what's that? You don't see it, little Jimmy. Well, let me draw it out for you. He then shows a Spiro, and I cannot stand this man.
Onixogdoxume. En japonés, esta la traje de Japón, quiere decir, yo, Satanás, tu señor.
What is that writing? This is not only a bizarre tactic, but it is just scummy. So he's saying he bought this card in Japan, and I guess he's pronouncing whatever that word is. Yeah, that Japanese word that's inscribed there, because he's saying it translates to I, Satan, your Lord. And this video looks like shit, but if you're able to get a good pause, it doesn't even look like Japanese. It looks like Spanish with a little remix. And it even kind of spells out the sounding out of this fake Japanese word that he has made up. I mean, even if I translate the sentence that he claims is in Japanese, does that look like that? How's he pronouncing it?
Onixogdoxume.
私はあなたの主をサタンです。
I even tried looking through dozens of Japanese Spiro cards online, using different keywords to see if I could find a card that had this type of extra marking, which yeah, was stupid on my part, but yeah, I've never seen a card like this in my life. So this just tells me you or your team wrote a fake Japanese word on a card to try and strengthen your case for the cute bird. Millions of people have heard this man speak. This guy has clearly frustrated me the most out of everybody thus far. I wish I could move on, but he just can't stop.
Gotta catch them all. Tienes que tener todas. Cuando un niño ya llega al grado del número 150 de las tarjetas, no te vaya. El niño ya está listo para matar a alguien.
So this clip ends with him pulling out a newspaper clipping claiming this is the proof of the type of damage that Pokemon can do. Talking about when 800 children in Japan were hospitalized for playing Pokemon. There was vomit, convulsions, spasms. The kids jumped all the way up and fell down. They were breathless, and all the medics and experts could not understand what happened to them. This is what he said. Now then, what he's referring to is the infamous Pokemon shock of 1997. And this is important to our topic at hand. The 38th episode of Indigo League is titled Dental Senshi Porygon. It aired in Japan and it featured some pretty intense strobe effects during some of the scenes. And don't worry, I will not be showing any of those flashing scenes for this video. Anyway, this was pretty much deemed the culprit for a reported more than 700 people being taken to the hospital for different symptoms, mostly children. So correcting this moron immediately, who we know is trash at this point, it's not so much that he doesn't know, it's just that he doesn't care. He wants to terrify you. That's how he brings you in. He says 800 children were hospitalized, when it says 700 in large text right there in the thing he's holding and showing everybody. And it wasn't just children. He says it was because they were playing with Pokemon. Nope. He starts to describe some of the symptoms correctly, but he just can't help himself. The children jumped up and then came down. What does that mean? And he ends that by saying that the experts didn't know what caused this, which he's half lying there, I guess. There was a lot of discussion here, and it wasn't immediately known. But those intense strobe effects in that episode ended up being blamed, and they ended up revising a lot of the animation in Indigo League to prevent this from happening again, which it has not. Now, the clip I was reviewing of Jose cuts off here, but I know he's not gonna mention that. I know he's not gonna mention that nobody died. I even tried looking for this specific article in his hand to see if maybe that article was just wrong. So I ended up paying for 3 different archives, and I could not find a clipping from what he says is from the Washington Times. The only article I could find from the date that he said is from the New York Times. And that article doesn't support like half the shit he said. I think this guy's had the worst showing in our lineup so far, and I am very upset that he even has a pinch of influence. But now, something a bit more lighthearted. Phil Arms Pokemon Power. And if you were looking forward to this one, I have some bad news. There's really nothing to refute in this short clip available. He's just wrong. He does his best George W. impression, has some funny inflections.
In the Dark Realm.
And sure, he sucks too, but in comparison, I have nothing to add. Shout out Scott Kramer for letting me buy his projector off of him. Super cool of him. Although he did threaten me to not use it in any video. Or else. So if I go missing. Let's have a little bit of trivia, shall we? What order were these released in? The Pokemon cartoon series, the Pokemon video game, the Pokemon manga, and the Pokemon trading card game. I'll give you a few seconds. You can think about it. Got an answer?
It started out as a cartoon.
Incorrect. It actually started as a video game for the Game Boy. That was in February 1996.
Went to a comic book.
No. The Pokemon trading card game was next. That was in October 1996.
They made it into a video game.
No, see, you aren't paying attention. Next up was the manga in March 1997.
Went to toys. Collectible card game.
Are you even fucking listening? The cartoon series was last, launching just 1 month later in April 1997. I am not even 1 minute into your 35-minute seminar, and you've gotten 4 things wrong already.
This thing is actually called Poliwhirl, but they actually had another name for it before they renamed it. When this creature first came out, it was called Hypno. And they changed it to Poliwhirl to make it a little more innocent.
Ah, yes. The innocence of not being named Hypno. Yeah, I'm glad they kept that name out of the game.
And this is an interesting character over here. This character over here is called Mewtwo. Now you notice that he has a particular salute that he's given. And he's in this pose. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. Now, he doesn't have 5 fingers like we do. He has 3. But if they were the 3 on us, they'd be this. And that doesn't mean hook 'em horns, doesn't mean I love you, doesn't mean one more, it means hail Satan. It's the satanic salute that all Satanists identify themselves with.
How is this man even able to gather a room of people to listen to him? What went wrong? Yes, if we decided to just pretend that we are carrying over the anatomy of this genetic experiment of a Pokemon and choosing very specific fingers to do so, then I now have a gun. Why would Mewtwo give me something so dangerous?
This is Pikachu. One thing I noticed about him right off was his tail. It's a lightning bolt. And it's a satanic Z.
You just said it's a lightning bolt. You said the gimmick. Satanic Z? Well, you see, once you apply modern-day Satanism to our alphabet, your children singing the ABCs won't be so cute anymore, will it? Are you really going to teach them to spell? When there's a satanic Z out there? I wouldn't. Not me. This man then goes on to, who would have thought, bring up magic and Dungeons and Dragons. Some might refer to them as the easier targets. And then he uses Wizards of the Coast to link them. Get a new routine, guys.
If this was actually clear, you'd see that that's a halter top. It stops right there. And she's got short shorts on.
It's hot in Kanto.
Jesse and James are stuck up, fashion conscious. And you know what? In the program, they're also prone to cross-dressing. Cross-dressing. Oh, what kind of role model would that be?
So he now begins to describe the main characters of the show. And while describing them, he throws out some adjectives. And as you just heard, he described Team Rocket. And without discussing the cross-dressing thing, they're the antagonist of the show. What role models? We are very much shown not to like them. They're bad.
I took some modern dance when I was a young lad. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Let's see. Headstrong, stubborn, quibbling, self-centered, vindictive, obnoxious, hormonal, sexually preoccupied, evil, thieving, cross-dressing jerks. I don't know about you, but I mean, even if I wasn't a Christian parent, I wouldn't want my kids to grow up with those kind of traits.
Characters with flaws? This guy's gonna be pissed when he hears about movies and books and people. And forgive me for being a bit cheeky here, but by that logic, deceptive, cunning, evil, wicked, jealous, barbaric murderers? I wouldn't want my kids reading the Bible. I mean, he's got a bit of a point. Pokemon has Meowth, a small, feisty thief. The Bible has the literal devil? Or does your pissy logic not count for things that you actually support? These guys get everything wrong. So he starts bringing up the Pokemon movie, and he focuses on Mewtwo's demon fingers. That's important. And then he says this.
When this movie, Pokemon, was actually first released in Japan, I want you to see it. Japanese cartoon triggers seizures in hundreds of children. And look at this. This is Tokyo, December 17th, 1997. This is when the movie was first actually released over in Japan.
No, no, no. It was released in 1998. And as we've already discussed, that incident was not because of the movie. It says that in your article.
We are shocked to hear many children were taken to hospitals, Uramoto said. We will investigate thoroughly and consult with experts. And you know what they found?
Oh, that's when you stop reading it. You didn't want to read the part right after that mentions the episode? Got it.
Not one of those children had a history of epilepsy.
I'm sorry, where did you source that from? Because it's not in the article you're showing us. I'm looking at it. Now, in fairness to him, even though he's just lying, in the New York Times article that I brought up earlier, it does say, quote, "It is not clear whether all 700 victims have seizure disorders. So far, no evidence has emerged that any were epileptic." Keep in mind, this was posted only 2 days after that show aired.
And it goes on further to say that they went through and even did CAT scans.
No, it does not. Mullet man?
Have you ever tried to get talking to a child when he's into this game? It's impossible. They spend more time on this Pokemon. And you know what? It's amazing that your child can tell you every Pokemon in existence, even tell you where they get their power, what they do, and how they do it, but they can't tell you what you told them 5 minutes ago.
And don't get me started on my wife. Nag, 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 yap, yap, yap. But when the bill shows up, silence. Let's talk about Missy's feet.
Look at this. This creature right here is called Haunter.
Did you hear that, Haunter? Haunter? Speak to me! He then starts bringing up news articles to try and make Pokemon look really bad. And I'm kind of sick of looking at this guy, but let's run through them.
Quebec teen stabbed at school over Pokemon cards. This was in Montreal. And this was a 12-year-old student that tried to help his younger brother after his younger brother had his Pokemon card deck stolen from him. And he went over to these young men to get the cards back, and one of the boys pulled out a 4-inch knife and stabbed him with it.
Why not a 30-inch sword? Okay, bad situation. But how did that story end? Because you kind of just moved on to the next article. I'll help you out. The guy was crazy. He even tried to stab the teacher, and he told us he would kill us all. The victim told Le Journal de Montreal Daily. Oh, okay. I'm no expert, but that kid sounds like he was just destined to stab somebody. It could have been over Pokemon, Twizzlers.
Here in Lakeland, Florida, there was a young boy who had a deck of Pokemon cards, and he was passing them around the class, and the woman teacher noticed that they were paying more attention to Pokemon than they were her. So she waited for the deck to get back to this young man, and then she walked over and grabbed that deck out of his hand. He got up and struck her dead in the face with his fists. And they called for the parents. The parents came to pick him up, and you know what he told his father? They were trying to steal my powers.
Okay, so the teacher was not a woman, for starters. Classy tactic, by the way. And there is absolutely no evidence that he went to the principal's office and had his parents called. It's not in your article, and it's not in the other one I found. They're trying to take away my powers. That just reminds me of those really bad political tweets. You know, my 3-year-old came up to me today and said, "Daddy, when will Sleepy Joe finally ban high-capacity magazines to disrupt the senseless gun violence in America?" Daddy's watching a game, shut up. I don't think it's a stretch to say that that very news segment from when I was a child more or less resembled a lot of the arguments and accusations that we've heard today. I don't fault my mom for trying to distance me from Pokemon. She didn't know any better. Pokemania was sweeping the nation, and it was hard to digest at the time. People fear what they don't understand. So when bad actors come along and pour gas on the fire, fear-mongering this craze that only the youth are familiar with, how do you expect parents to react? Especially when they are religious, and that label of satanic is nothing to play with. If I brought a Ouija board into my mom's house, she would kick me in the face. She's probably gonna hate a lot of the fucking props that I bought for this video. The news, the churches, the blogs, a lot of them weaponized Pokemon for their own gain, and/or they were just dumb people. I mean, did you ever wonder why nobody accused Digimon of being demonic? Well, it's because nobody gives a fuck about Digimon. Digimon wasn't number one. Digimon wasn't in the headlines. Nobody wanted the Garurumon plushie for Christmas. But it is kind of crazy that nobody took aim at Digimon. Because, I don't know if you guys know this, but Digimon is short for digital monsters. I know. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It would mean very, very much. I am very proud of this project, very happy to release it. I'm also hoping that I did release it on my birthday, May 25th. If I didn't, that sucks balls. Also, if you're new here, please subscribe. Trying to hit 1 million 2023. Shout out to Gamersupps yet again for sponsoring this video. That is code Mr. GG, 10% off. They got the hottest, softest merch in the game. Please check out the second channel. I will actually have a follow-up video to this one on there because there are many things that I could not discuss. So I think that one's gonna be a fun one. Shout out to my lovely, lovely patrons that you see on screen. They get a Patreon exclusive every single month. Appreciate you guys very, very much. And as always, I am Mr. GG, and I am out.